3 years after the low-budget film that breathed life into the slasher genre, the demand for a continuation of the story brought about its first sequel. And this one wasn't directed by Carpenter, but instead by the man who would go on to give us Halloween Resurrection. So take that for what you will. This is my review of Halloween 2. The movie starts off where the previous ended, and Dr. Loomis, played once again by the late Donald Pleasance, searching for the not as dead as he'd hoped, Michael Myers, now played by Dick Warlock. It doesn't take Michael long to add another person to his list of victims, this being Alice, played by Anne Brunner. Unfortunately, in all the panic to catch Michael, someone who looks suspiciously like Michael gets nailed. To add to the oh shit list, Sheriff Brackett, played by Charles Cyphers, learns that one of the victims tonight is his daughter. Meanwhile, Laurie, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is taken to the hospital where she's patched up. Is it any surprise that Michael is able to slip into this building unnoticed? While the masked man is lurking around, one of the paramedics, Jimmy, played by Lance Guest, fills Laurie in on things. Except for, the whole Michael is still alive and roaming around somewhere a bit. The single security guard this place has on staff, Mr. Garrett, played by the late Cliff Emick, discovers what's wrong with the phone lines. With no positive ID on the Shatner lookalike who is burnt to a crisp, Loomis and what remains of the police return to the streets. Another paramedic, Bud, played by Leo Rossi, and Nurse Karen, played by Pamela Susan Shoop, find out the hard way that sneaking a break in the therapy room isn't a wise idea. How can Michael not get blistering burns too? At this point, why look too closely at anything? Loomis goes to a local school when evidence of a break-in by Michael is found. This also includes another painfully subtle clue as to the link between Michael and Laurie. While Loomis gives a not too accurate history lesson on Samhain, Marion, played by Nancy Stevens, informs him that he's essentially being ordered to abandon the search for Michael and retreat. Speaking of, on his way to Laurie, Michael kills a number of other staff members, leaving just Jimmy and Nurse Jill, played by Tawny Moyer, to look for help. And Laurie. For someone in such bad shape, she can sure get around. Actually, I take back what I said about Jill. She quite literally gets skewered by Michael. Once again, Laurie is hobbling for her life. Not even Jimmy can help at this point. I would like to briefly touch on one thing here, which is the rather ambiguous fate of Jimmy. In the original cut of the film, we're left to assume he's most likely dead. However, there is a deleted scene where we're shown he's alive. Back in the car, Marion has some information about Michael Myers that Dr. Loomis never knew about.
That Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister.
This just puts family reunions in a worse light. Good news is, Dr. Loomis, Marion, and the officer escorting them have arrived at the hospital. Bad news is they locked Laurie outside with Michael, until they finally notice her. Even worse news... Yeah, cause that worked so well the last time. With the officer out of the equation, Laurie and Loomis are quite literally backed into an operating room, while Marion calls for backup. At least Laurie has a gun this time, and some damn good aim. If shooting him point blank at the torso does nothing, why would shooting him in the head? Best use something more explosive at this point. Smells like faux hair, rubber, and disappointment. So which hospital are they shipping Laurie off to now? I hope it's fireproof and has a lot more security. Imagine that. Who have you got? Laurie Strode. Ah, shit. And with Mr. Sandman by the Cordettes playing, the credits roll. Pleasance and Curtis are the primary reasons why people returned to Haddonfield on the big screen. Aside from Michael, of course. And they both returned to the characters rather well. Warlock did an admirable job as Michael, and provided his own kind of menacing silence that separates him just enough from Nick Castle. The score, while being a bit different from the original, isn't bad at all in my opinion. Perhaps not quite as dreadful as Carpenter's original theme, but it serves its purpose. Portions of the film where Michael is stalking around before getting to the hospital hold a good bit of tension and unease. The scares that are used can be seen coming, but do a decent job. They, along with the kills, prevent the events of the movie from being completely dull. You gotta know that this is a quick cash grab, when the original director didn't even want to attempt it. Though Carpenter was still part of the production, yes. The plot is oh so lacking here. While writing the script for my review, I was concerned that I wouldn't have enough for a proper video. I feel like this is one of the sequels that's often brushed aside in the Halloween franchise. I can see why. It's not terribly thrilling and takes a while to get going, but hospitals are already unsettling. And then you put Michael Myers in there? Oy. The hospital is initially an interesting setting, but quickly becomes stale. One of the things that I hear most often that people like most about the OG Halloween is the Halloween atmosphere of it. Here, everything is just beige and sterile and lifeless. The little bits of decorations are the only indication that this is a Halloween set movie. Aside from our returning characters, I really didn't care too much about the rest that we were introduced to. Jimmy maybe, but that's about it. And when we don't see Loomis much until the climax, and with Laurie drugged and unconscious for most of the film, that's not a good thing. The twist of Laurie being Michael's sister leaves a number of plot holes in both this and the original Halloween. I get that they were trying to provide a reason as to why Michael would go after Laurie, but I felt that was part of the reason why he was scary in the first film, because there was no definite reason. As I mentioned before, we don't get much action or tension until the third act, and then it all seems pretty rushed. Loomis's sacrifice feels lackluster in terms of caring and emotion. With all that being said, I'm giving Halloween 2 5 out of 10 bloody thumbs up. When I first watched Halloween 2, I enjoyed it and thought it was rather good. Rewatching it now, I didn't quite have that same experience, and I couldn't explain why I initially found it to be as good a movie as I previously thought it was. It holds up well enough, but generally lacks elements to really make it stand out. I wouldn't call Halloween 2 a bad horror movie. It's just kind of like when you have some good food and have more as leftovers, but for some reason it doesn't taste quite as good. Yes, I did just use a food analogy for the franchise. It's still a serviceable slasher that delivers on just enough to satisfy many fans of the subgenre. It's alright as a double feature to the OG Halloween, if you're so inclined. I would recommend Halloween 2 to spooky season enthusiasts, slasher fanatics, Halloween franchise diehards, and Michael Bay fans. See you later. If you're looking for more Halloween slasher fun, check out my reviews of the rest of the Halloween franchise. Thank you to my patrons Michael Museo, The Horror Show, Bronson Wright Wolf, Diana Moe, Sean Sheridan, and Raiders AK for supporting the channel.